A serious accident near Interstate 64 sent multiple people to the hospital. More on what happened, plus MasterBrand Cabinets is set to expand its Ferdinand plant even more than what was originally anticipated, and Purdue Extension educator Jan Dugan talks about feeding children tonight on Inform. All of that and much more is up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Hello, I'm Bradford Raths. We begin tonight with a serious accident at the I64 ramp south of Ferdinand that totaled 2 vehicles and injured 4 people. At 8:20 last night, DuBois County Sheriff's deputies were called to the eastbound off-ramp of I-64 at State Road 162 just to the south of Ferdinand. Deputies say 17-year-old Douglas Lampert of St. Anthony had been southbound on State Road 162 at the same time as 18-year-old Travis Vonderheide of Ferdinand was headed northbound. According to deputies, Lampert did not yield the right-of-way and attempted to turn in front of Vonderheide to head east on I-64. Vonderheide's truck and Lampert's car collided head-on. Lampert and a passenger in his vehicle, 56-year-old Michael Lampert of St. Anthony, were trapped inside of the vehicle and had to be extricated. Both Lamperts and a second passenger, 18-year-old Courtney Holzman of St. Croix, were taken to Memorial Hospital. The Lamperts were later taken to St. Mary's Hospital in Evansville by ambulance. Vonderheide refused to be treated by EMS at the scene, but he was later taken to Memorial Hospital by personal vehicle. Vonderheide and Holzman were both treated and released according to authorities. Both vehicles were totaled in the crash, as mentioned, and Douglas Lampert was cited for failing to yield the right-of-way. State Road 162 was closed for an hour last night due to this accident. Ferdinand Police, the Ferdinand Fire Department and first responders, Memorial Hospital EMS, Spencer County EMS, and wreckers from Bergs and Hassenauers all assisted deputies at the scene. Another round of storms rolled through the area early yesterday evening and caused some trouble for residents. Last night's storms took down a pole barn on State Road 162 near Ferdinand. The barn, which was owned by Mike Hope, housed an RV and various work equipment, including a bulldozer. DuBois County Emergency Management Director Tammy Miller says the brief wind gust parallels storms that hit the area last week.
Actually, it's very similar to what happened in Warwick County, just not as widespread. It's a macro burst. And Gary was estimating, based off the damage assessments and radar, could have been wind gusts up to 70 to 80 mile an hour, and that would have caused that pole barn to be destroyed.
Miller says the barn was the only building reported damaged in the storm. She says the storm cut a roughly 1-mile path of damage in all, though most of that was downed trees. The most notable of those was a tree that was removed from along US 231 to the south of the Witts Bottoms this morning. A power line at US 231 and County Road 750 South also was damaged overnight, and Vectren crews were called in to make repairs there. According to the National Weather Service, a macroburst is a term used to describe the size of a downburst that causes damaging winds on or near the ground. The macroburst is capable of leaving an area of damaging winds extending more than 2.5 miles. The Weather Service says it can last anywhere from 5 minutes to half an hour, and winds can cause tornado-like damage with top wind speeds up to 134 miles per hour. Last night's storm was known as a microburst. The expansion of MasterBrand Cabinets' Ferdinand location is now going to be more than what was initially expected. Last night, the Ferdinand Town Council approved an additional tax abatement request from MasterBrand towards expansion of its Ferdinand plant. The company plans to hire another 194 workers and will invest $1.2 million more in infrastructure improvements and another $2.2 million for new equipment. These numbers are in addition to the 262 jobs and nearly $8 million in investment that were announced last month at a press conference held at the MasterBrand facility. Now, the new abatement is for 9 years in all. The company will have a full abatement for the first 6 years, and that goes down to 75% by the year 7, 50% in year 8, and 25% in the final year. Town Council President Ken Seacard says the additional investment is a great thing for the community. He hopes MasterBrand's efforts will help to attract other business to invest in Ferdinand.
The fact that a major company is looking to put in almost $6 to $7 million worth of investment into the town, I'm hoping that wakes up some other people as we go out and we talk. we're doing what we can to help them. We're getting ready to come in and address some housing issues and things like that to see how far we can take things and what can we do to help out that, because here's an additional probably almost 320 new employees coming in, and they're going to have to live somewhere.
The company plans to hire for the 194 jobs starting in October of this year and continuing through February of next year. Also last night, the council heard from Tom Leakin concerning upcoming street projects in the town. Leakin told the council there are 6 projects to be done in all, with 2 other alternate projects that could be done. The 6 projects are East 7th Street between Michigan and Carolina, East 2nd Street between Illinois and Michigan, Maryland Street between 7th and 8th, Northview Drive between 18th and 21st, Maple Drive from East 22nd Street to State Road 264, and the Scenic Hills Industrial Drive area off of West 3rd Street. Seacard says the work on the streets is much needed. He says budgets and future planning all come into play.
Tom goes around with his guys and they look at how the streets are wearing and things along those lines. We realize that money is tight in a way, so he tries to plan it so that we can get as many streets covered as possible. So he's gone out and he's laid out some different streets. We've looked at them. They're slowly but surely getting in bad shape, so we're going to try to catch them before they get too bad.
The council gave Leakin the go-ahead to start accepting bids for the projects. Bids are set to be opened at July's council meeting. In final notes, the council approved a new animal ordinance. The ordinance dates back to the April meeting after various complaints from residents. The new ordinance now allows for electronic leashes to be used in order to keep pets under control. Additionally, the council heard that 7 teams in all have registered for the upcoming town beautification project. That project is being sponsored by German American Bank. It was approved at last month's meeting, and it's set to take place from 8 a.m. to noon coming up on Saturday. Another man involved in events surrounding the December death of a Washington teen has learned his fate. 28-year-old Craig Street was sentenced to 2 years in the Indiana Department of Corrections for his role in the shooting death of 17-year-old Devin Burris back on December 6th. The sentence also includes 10 years of work release and 3 years on home detention. Street will be on probation for 15 years once he is released. Street pled guilty on a Class A felony for conspiracy to commit robbery resulting in serious bodily injury last month. The plea is part of an agreement between Street's attorney and County Prosecutor Dan Murray. Street is the 3rd person sentenced in the case. 18-year-old Logan Evans received a 45-year prison sentence, while 19-year-old Lucas Benjamin was sentenced to 30 years behind bars. Evans' cousin, 18-year-old Devin Burris, is still awaiting trial. She is facing charges for hiding Evans from authorities following the shooting. Street and 29-year-old Donald Cruckton were arrested early last month for their roles in Burris' death. Burris was shot to death by Evans during a fight over a drug deal that was set up between Burris and Benjamin. Finally this evening, Jasper residents got the opportunity to hear more about recent recognition for the city. Last night, a public hearing was held at Jasper City Hall concerning the recent nomination of the downtown square to the National Register of Historic Places. The nomination was announced last week by city officials. To be nominated to the register, an area has to meet several conditions. These include being more than 50 years old, being associated with important events or people on the local, state, or national level, and still displaying qualities that make it historically significant. Minor changes to the area up for nomination were also illustrated on a map at last night's hearing. Proposed additions to the area include some buildings to the west of 6th and Newton Streets, along with extending southward to include an area near 3rd Street. The map also recommended the removal of an area between 7th and 8th Streets, including German American's downtown building. Darla Blasey is the Director of Community Development and Planning for the City of Jasper. She says the nomination has several advantages.
There's a couple of benefits to being nominated or being listed on the register. One would be the potential tax credits that the property owners would be eligible for on a federal level. And then the second one is from a tourism standpoint, the promotion of the downtown.
Blasey says those tax credits could be used by landowners for restoring properties in the district should the downtown square wind up on the National Register of Historic Places. Laura Renwick was the guest speaker at last night's hearing. She is a community preservation specialist for Indiana Landmarks' Southern Indiana office, which is based out of Jeffersonville. Renwick says there are 2 main reasons for downtown Jasper's nomination.
It stands out and qualifies for the register both because of the architectural merit. There are lots of really great late 19th century and early 20th century buildings around the square, and also because the buildings that are here do help tell the story of how Jasper developed and what made Jasper what it is today. A lot of those buildings are still standing.
Renwick says the nomination is a great status symbol for the city, and it also helps with marketing. Funding has been awarded to the city courtesy of Indiana Landmarks' Partners in Preservation grant program as part of the nomination. The funding from the PIP program will partially cover the hiring of a professional consultant to complete the nomination process. That person will also supervise the nomination through the review at the state level. Renwick says the project consultant is now set to compile all necessary information for the nomination. She says that the whole nomination process will likely take several months to complete. All right, coming up after the break, your local forecast, sports with Kurt Guxell, and Inform with Jan Dugan. That's all up next here on the 18 WJTS News. Local people watching local people.